Hello, you beautiful degenerates, and welcome to Links and Locks, the Action Network's golf betting podcast presented by Bet365. I'm your host, Roberto Arguello, and I'm excited to break down the second major championship of the year on the men's side, the PGA Championship, alongside Nick Bretwish. You can find him on Twitter at SticksPicks, and you can find Spencer Aguiar, whom I'm also very excited to be joined with this week. You can find him on Twitter at TeeOffSports. Gentlemen, excited to break down this major championship with you from Valhalla Golf Club in Louisville, Kentucky. Before we get into our course preview, our outright bets, placement market bets, I think we're going to have a few more of those than we have had recently on the pod. Matchups, one and done. It's a major movement last week on our one and done. And then also any rapid fire exotic picks. Got a few extra crazy ones for you this week. So very excited to break those down. But first, let's jump into our best bets. Spencer, I'll swing it to you first. What is your best bet for the 2024 PGA Championship?
I'm going to lay a little bit more juice than I normally would for this section. I'm taking Shane Lowry minus 129 over Tom Kim.
Ooh, okay. So last week, you faded Shane Lowry. That was your best bet in our best bets article. Those all cashed. So now we're going on the other side. So I'm excited to hear that, Cap. Nick, who you got for your best bet this week?
Jon Rahm, outright, 20-1.
All right. Rambo. I believe he was around 10-1 to win the Masters, but now he's 20-1. Been playing some pretty consistent golf on Live. A little underwhelming Masters result, but got a little bit of reason why I think that was a little bit of a fluke. We'll get into that later. My best bet for the week, I'm going with Alex Noren to finish 59th or better on Bet365. Laying a little juice here at minus 120. We'll get into that, Cap, in a moment. But first, Spencer, why are you backing Shane Lowry this week?
A lot of this is coming down, and I think it's, you mentioned this of my model was on Shane Lowry and Rory at the Zurich. It was off of Shane Lowry this week, and now it's back on Shane Lowry. But even as much as I do like him here, and I'll talk about the safety that I believe he possesses, a lot of this cap for me comes down to wanting to fade Tom Kim in matchups. There was no player in this field that ended up grading as a more overpriced commodity than I got out of Tom Kim for me in my sheet. I always mention this on the show, but I run things from a 2-year perspective to avoid some of these recency biases that can quickly plummet a profile of one of these names. Like, you're going to get any of those answers with Tom Kim when you look at the recent data. He's lost with his driver in 5 straight starts. He's lost with his irons in 5 of 6. But even when you branch this out a little bit further and you look at this long-term data that I am trying to present here this week, there is this massive red flag that is placing him outside of the top 100 golfers inside of my model. He graded 124th when faced with a long course with thick rough. That's what he's going to get here at this course. He is 92nd for me in reprojected strokes gained total. He's yet to make a cut in 3 PGA championship attempts. He's lost on average 2.36 strokes to the field per round during those tournaments. This is an extremely volatile profile. I don't think the game is there for Kim, and I really was trying to find a golfer that I thought had safety in his build. That was Shane Lowry for me. 7 consecutive made PGA championships into the weekend there. And then that includes 5 of those finishes landing in the top 23. So it's a safe profile with Lowry where I'm just looking to get him into the weekend. I do think, and we've talked about this off air, and I've talked about this with Nick even a little bit, there's probably even a little bit more safety in that profile for him to potentially top 10 or 20 this tournament. But I like the profile of Lowry, and you mix that in with this boom or bust nature, which is just a lot of bust here with Tom Kim. I'm looking to take him on where I can in the market.
So the Shane Lowry whisper strikes again. One other thing to note, last week when you faded Shane Lowry, we wanted to bet on some guys who had some upside because it was a no-cut event, and if you shoot a 65 one day, that's really going to help, and you're going to get 4 rounds. So a little bit different calculation this week where there is a cut. There's a full field, over 140 players in this field this week trying to get the Wanamaker trophy. And you can just bet on a guy for safety instead of having to factor in more upside as well. So I think that's a sharp cap. I like it. Nick, why are you backing Jon Rahm this week?
You kind of said it right there, just being 10-1 at Augusta. Obviously, the course history and stuff matters a little bit more there, but this is a course that I think fits Jon Rahm extremely well. I like the quiet narrative of no one really talking about Jon Rahm, anything live related. right now is going to be the negative side of Taylor Gooch with the fans, and then obviously anything about Brooks Koepka coming off a win at Singapore. So to me, it's an ultimate number grab. I have Jon Rahm proper right around 14-1. Grades is one of the best in total driving for me on this course, like for the expected strokes gained with the driver. So the distance is there, the accuracy is there, the long iron's there, the bunkers player is there. Like everything about Jon Rahm screams that he should be, obviously not Scotty and Rory Price here, but he should be right there with Brooks Koepka in the low to mid teens. And to get 20-1 on someone I think is probably the second or third best golfer in the field overall. A year ago, I think everybody would agree with us. And like what changed? Obviously, he went to live, but in a little disappointing situation with Augusta on Friday. And that's what Spencer and I kind of talked about. He had one bad round at the Masters, and that was Friday when it was like gale force winds. And at that point, he probably just didn't want to be there. I think just the narrative of no one talking about him, everything for me and the sample size that I ran ball striking wise fits this course to a T. So let's go Jon Rahm.
I like it. I'm also on Jon Rahm outright this week. And one thing that I found while digging through some data golf, this is kind of a weird stat, but Rahm lost 0.94 strokes per round on the putting greens at the Masters, which were the most strokes he's lost per round in a tournament with 4 rounds of data since the 2018 WGC Bridgestone Invitational.
Damn.
That was a long time. I think that's more of a fluke. The other times that he's had more strokes gained lost have been in tournaments like the American Express, where you only get 2 rounds of data, or 1 round if you don't make the cut, or if you don't make the cut at other tournaments, you only get 2 rounds of data for the week. So I think that is an outlier. I think it gives us a chance to jump on Rahm, and in the 7 live golf tournaments that he's played in, all of them have been in the top 10. That one poor-ish performance was at the Masters, where he still made the cut, finished in the top 50, but not to his standard. I think we're getting a little bit of a boost on him outright, so I like that one. Getting into my best bet, I like Alex Noren, 59th or better. He's just playing great golf. I think he's somebody whom, if you find someone you want to fade in a matchup, if you find him against Alex Noren, take Alex Noren. I think Alex Noren is super safe. He is not long off the tee, which I think caps his upside this week, but everything else is there. He's above average driving accuracy. He is really strong on approach around the green. He's great as well. I think that's a little bit diluted this week because of the thick rough and the lack of short grass. But if you look at Alex Noren, so far this year, he's played in 11 tournaments. All 11, he's finished in the top 53. Once again, this is 59th. Of course, there's some more live golf players in this field, so might not have been in the top 59 in this field in that event, but still playing really solid golf, made the cut every week. In his last 6 tournaments, he's gained in all 3 of these strokes gained categories, around the green, on approach, and off the tee. Clearly playing really well. And in those last 7 events, no finish lower than a tie for 24th. That tie for 24th came last week when he had by far his worst putting week of the whole year. But he still made up for it with the rest of his game. I think that he can have one part of his game be loose and still survive this weekend. It's a cut of 70 in ties this week, so I think as long as he makes the cut, I like my chances of him finishing better than 60th. And even though we're laying a little juice at minus 120, I'm willing to take it this week. This is a market that I didn't get to bet on a lot this year because we've had these limited field events where you can't bet on a guy to really finish 59th or better if there's 70 players. But I'm happy to have a full field this week and be able to dive into this market once more. All right, fellas, we've gone through our best bets. Let's jump into our course preview for Valhalla Golf Club. We've not seen it in a major championship since all the way back in 2014 when Rory McIlroy won his most recent major championship, his 4th of his career. Spencer, I'll swing it to you first. How are you handicapping Valhalla?
Isn't that a wild statement to make that Rory's last victory came 10 years ago in a major at this course? It kind of goes to show the struggles that we've gotten in majors and how difficult it is to get across the finish line. And when you have the opportunity to do so, you really need to take advantage of it. But Valhalla is an extremely lengthy track on paper. It's been even more extended over the years. Right now, it's measuring 7,609 yards. You get this thick, rough, and zoysia grass fairways that provide this fire and ice combination. The rough is going to impede rollouts on this tricky Nicklaus design. However, the firm and fast conditions of the fairways create this fiery nature that can very quickly run balls into the numerous sand traps located throughout the property. Inside of my model, I decided to look at how a golfer handled their proximity totals when you combine those 2 factors this week. That doesn't necessarily mean that these fairways will be impossible to hit. at least as much as we have gotten during some of these iterations of a PGA championship. But it's a unique venue with a blueprint that is very easy to follow for what you need to do in all situations. And I think in general, even PGA championships in the generic outlook of that all follow a very similar design. You need quality total driving. It's usually going to be geared towards distance. Long iron play comes in as the secondary metric that always fits into the mix. I weighed putting more than most because par saving qualities are needed to salvage a score when you miss a green in regulation. It's one of the interesting things about this property is you get this thick rough around the surface. I do think it takes away some of that skill set since it becomes less of an artistic mastery. Like at Augusta, you get this artistic skill set of how you can figure out a way to strategically get your ball into the direction that you need it. This is a little bit more of that chop it out and then make your putt viewpoint. But even with all of that being said, I like this course at its most basic level. I know it's received mixed reviews throughout the space, but I'm always going to be happy when we get a long course made even longer because of the wet conditions. I think when you look at the last two iterations of this contest held at this venue, Rory's win was exciting, pure darkness over Phil Mickelson. You go to 2000 when Tiger Woods took out Bob May. That's probably arguably one of the greatest major championships over the past 25 years with all the theatrics that came into play there. It's just a venue to where it's very difficult to separate yourself from the field. Justin Thomas even made that comment earlier today. So, it makes it a unique outright betting board because some of that advantage that Scotty Scheffler has is mitigated in a lot of the ways of where Scotty Scheffler can pull away from the field. So to me, this looks like a venue to where we're going to have a real dogfight on Sunday with a handful of names in contention. And when you have more names in the contention and all of a sudden you increase the volatility of the outcome, it doesn't mean that some random name is going to end up pulling this tournament out. It just means that on Sunday, when you have 7 to 10 guys in contention, I don't know that the Scotty Scheffler usual dominance always ends up coming out into fruition and he wins the golf tournament. So it might be an interesting event if you save some units to even fire on later in the week.
I agree. I think this is the major this year that sets up the least favorably for Scotty Scheffler, although I do believe that any golf course with 18 holes is going to set up very favorably for Scotty Scheffler, given how elite he is at everything except putting, and now he's turning that into a strength as well. Nick, anything you'd like to add on that course preview?
No, I think Spencer nailed it as always. Everything that I kind of weighed is the expected strokes gained off the tee with the distance kind of leading the way there. A little focus on accuracy as well, and getting up and down this thick rough and playing out of fairway bunkers, I think is going to be very important. And guys that spray the ball, i.e. Matt Wallace, I know Spencer and I talked about him a little bit yesterday on the DFS side of things. Probably won't make my card because just again with the 3-tiered rough that we're hearing about, I think those that are extremely wayward off the tee are going to have a really hard time. But those that are long and relatively straight, Rory and JT I think said it in their presser earlier this morning. Like that is what matters here, and pray you hit the fairway and see what happens.
I like it. Fellas, let's jump into our outright cards. Nick, I'll swing it back to you real quick. You got Jon Rahm. Who else do you have on the card this week?
All right. So I know we're going to have a little bit of repeat here with two of my guys in Hovland and DJ. So I'll let Spencer take that one. I did bite the bullet on two guys that I don't necessarily love here that are higher up the board, but I think do have significant win equity. And what I kind of wrote down here is like, if one part of their game can click this week, there is no reason why they can't win this tournament. That is going to be Jordan Spieth, 80-1. If the irons can come back to life, obviously the added distance he's done off the tee the past year and a half has been very interesting to see. I haven't heard about him like speed training or anything like that. So whatever he's doing is working. Maybe it's just a workout regimen, but he's absolutely pounding the ball off the tee. The iron play is just a complete mixed bag every single week. Obviously, we know he's got the short game to get up and down in thick rough, fairway bunkers. Like he's a very creative player, and I think that this is a thinker's course. As long as you have that distance, checkbox, I think this is somewhere that Jordan Spieth could certainly shock the world, but obviously the recent form in iron play is going to be sketchy. I just think 80-1 maybe is a little bit too much of a reaction by the betting market for a guy like Jordan Spieth going for the career Grand Slam. And then Jason Day, the only thing I wrote about Jason Day, same thing with Jordan Spieth. If we can get solid iron play Jason Day could win this tournament. And I absolutely believe that. He's one of the best drivers of the golf ball on the PGA Tour, that being distance and accuracy. And he scores without iron play. So again, if he can just, we saw a peak a little bit at the Wells Fargo last week, finishing inside the top 5. I think he was solo 4th. Significant improvements in the iron play to what we've seen in the past couple, I guess the past month and a half. But when he spikes in the iron play, this guy is a walking top 10. And I like the putter and the fact that this is kind of going to be a higher scoring, lower scores to par type of tournament where he could certainly hang in there. And if we can get inside the top 10 on Saturday, Sunday, and just see what happens, I think 75-1 again is a number that's too high for someone that is that good off the tee in Jason Day. And then the last guy I had, I think he's kind of just sitting there. Obviously we know the major history is not fantastic, but is certainly getting better with his last 2 outings. Kind of priced in no man's land. I didn't necessarily have a significant mathematical edge here, but Max Homa kind of checks every single box that I'm looking for here. And anybody in that 30 to 40 to 1 range, I think, is kind of just getting overlooked. And I think books are happy with that they're not going to have much liability on those, higher middle tier type of players, if you want to call Max Homa that, like the Morikawas of the world too. So I think that's a really good spot to attack these sports books from. And Max Homa at 35-1 fit my card perfectly. So where I do have exactly 1 unit at risk in the outright market. But I am going to probably save right around half unit to go in play here, like Spencer said, with the live betting there. I think it will, once we actually see the course Thursday and Friday and have a firm course Saturday and Sunday with the weather report that we're looking at right now, I think that's certainly a good move. But I'll kick it over to Spencer here to talk about Hovland and our boy DJ here at very, very long numbers.
Yeah, I do want to double down very quickly on the Jon Rahm discussion. So I thought he was the best value on the board because of this market correction that we've gotten. Like, this was an 8-1 golfer for the PGA Championship last year. He was a 12-1 option to start the season at Augusta. And now all of a sudden you get this juiced up price that has really failed to realize his long-term production because of one shaky start at the Masters. That is something that we are going to get quite often from the names who move to live, and we have gotten quite frequently from the names who have moved to live. But if you aren't winning on that tour, you almost turn into this out of sight, out of mind sort of like almost this out of sight, out of mind propaganda starts there. But like, Rahm's first place rank for projected ball striking at Valhalla inside of my sheet generated a profile that has unjustifiably received this live price modification that we continue to get. So I thought that was the best value on the board when everything opened. The reverse of that answer would be the other name that I took, because you have another live golfer here, but I liked Brooks Koepka at 17-1. There's no price hike here. This is a situation where the public and in general at these majors become very bullish on Koepka's potential. And I'm normally the one that wants to go the other direction and fade him in matchups. And you see the market and even the sharper bettors are continuing to do that, to where, I mean, pretty much anybody he's placed against, he's a massive underdog. And I understand that. And this is something that I try to do every single tournament. But this was the one time in really any of these situations of the last couple years where Koepka actually graded well for me. He was first in my model for past PGA Championship results. That's naturally going to be the answer when you've won 3 of the past 6. That's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, giving out that answer. But the thing that was more indicative for me of potential success was that course-specific strokes gained for this venue. He was also number 1. So the secondary part of that answer is going to hold a lot of weight for me, because it shows him to be the best suited player in this field for the course. When you combine his long iron proximity, his quality total driving, that's going to be geared towards distance in my model. I do think accuracy matters a little bit, which is why anytime you get a Nicklaus design, you still need to be able to be strategic out there. But I do think at these general viewpoints of these contests, Koepka is very good at that. And then he also gets this increase with his putter on similar greens. So Rahm would be the name that is drifted. Koepka would be the name that the public continues to like. You could add Bryson into that mix too. Bryson has a lot of support in the market. But the third name is the option that Nick talked about previously with Dustin Johnson at 90-1. And you can even get that at 105-1 now at Bet365. I understand it might be asking a little bit too much for him to win another major at this point of his career, but my model has aggressively suggested fading him. And you could listen back to almost every single show that we've done here at Action Network during a major championship over the past few years. He has consistently been the name that I am trying to find a way to take him on. There were two situations that my model liked him. It liked him at the 2022 Open Championship. It liked him at the 2023 US Open. Those are two events that saw him finish inside the top 10. So my numbers seem to be pretty accurate when it comes to Dustin in these contests. I still believe that there's another chance or two of him capturing a major before he officially rides off into the sunset. I know that he's kind of already half done that with his move to live. And I think Dustin, more so than a lot of these players, that move probably was not great for his game just because he is somebody who needs to be out there on the PGA grinding. And when his skill set is good, he's arguably one of the best players in the world. But you get a venue here, long course, thick rough, number one in my model in off the tee production over a 5-year running duration. And I understand a lot of that now has been moved to live. So what does that number actually mean? I don't know. That's what you have to decide for yourself. But if you're telling me he's 90 to 105 to 1, I'm willing to throw a dart at that price. It's very similar to Nick's mentality with a Jordan Spieth answer here. Like, Spieth worries me for all the reasons in the world that we could talk about, but there is a certain point where the value becomes too much to ignore. So I got there with Dustin, and then the other name for me that I just thought there was a little bit too much value was Victor Hovland at 50 to 1. The recent production is going to leave everything that you want to be desired there, but it's one of those situations where we have now reached the point where the downside is already included into this price. It's one thing when early in the year, and I got caught in this game quite too frequently with it, where I was betting him at 18 to 1, 20 to 1, 25 to 1. The projection of a profile changes when he's now a 50 to 1 golfer. So the data loves him here. He's a top 10 win equity player for me when I remove the downside from the equation. The downside's obviously going to matter, but at 50 to 1, I still think that that's a price grab that you can take a chance at, and you just have to know what you're signing up for. It hasn't hit with Hovland the entire year. You're asking for a lot for it to change here, but at 50 to 1, I'm willing to take that chance.
I think it's also important to note that with the mitigation of Scheffler's elite short game, I think there's also reason to believe that Hovland's disadvantage in short game will also be
100%.
minimized this week. So the big downside for him is mitigated. I think that's very valuable. I also love the approach upside. Had a great approach week at Wells Fargo this past weekend, and he's going to hit these full cut lasers off the tee, which are going to find a bunch of fairways. He basically eliminates half the golf course off the tee. So I think he's got great upside. I'm also on him at 50 to 1 for the reasons we laid out on Rahm. I'm also on him at 20 to 1, as we mentioned. One other thing to note for Jon Rahm, a couple courses that I thought had some shared characteristics, not a full 100% comp, were Torrey Pines South, where you've got this thick, rough, big behemoth of a golf course. That's a course that he's won a major championship at. He loves that golf course. I thought that had some similarities. Another one is Muirfield Village, where
yes, sir. I was just going to mention that too.
Yeah, you got bent grass greens there. Jon Rahm's won it a couple times, or if he didn't win it a couple times, he would have won it a couple times if he was allowed to play the final round with COVID when he had a 7-shot lead. That was a great day for me because I was able to bet on everybody else before the books adjusted that Rahm was going to be out. So shout out to Jon Rahm for that withdrawal. I owe him a beer when I see him, if I ever see him. But I think Jon Rahm has had some success on similar golf courses, big time golf courses where you have to have that long mid-iron play. And for him, he's going to be out there past everybody besides really Rory and Bryson consistently. So he's got the upside that I think isn't priced correctly. Additionally, on my board, I am going to go with Patrick Cantlay, 45 to 1. I thought that he was a golfer who should have been in that 30 to 1 range. So it's a number grab for me. He's had some really solid weeks, top fives at Riviera, top 5 at RBC Heritage. I know the Heritage is a very different golf course, but just shows that his game is not too far away, and he has the skill set to contend here. Also, someone who's done really well at Muirfield Village. I also am on a few other longer golfers. I've got Akshay Bhatia at 165 to 1. He's got a ton of upside. I don't think it's priced incorrectly. I thought he should have been a little bit closer to 100 to 1. The performance at the Valero Texas Open, where he and Denny McCarthy ran away from the field. Rory played decently that week and was third, like 8 shots behind them. His long iron numbers, I think, are encouraging. And Spencer, you mentioned the thrilling finishes here at Valhalla in the past. One of them was, I believe, in 2017, 2018, the junior PGA, when Batia was over the par 5 18th hole in 2 shots, needed to get up and down for birdie to force a playoff. Barely pitches it onto the green. Slope takes it, goes in the hole for eagle. He wins it in walk-off fashion. He's had some success around here. I'm not putting too much weight on that for what he did when he was like 16, 17 against a bunch of other junior golfers. But there's some familiarity there. I love his game. I think he's got a ton of upside, and I'm willing to take a stab at it at 165 to 1. Maybe you want to go top 10, top 20 with him instead. I also took a shot on Steven Jaeger. He's in the 135 to 1 range out there at Bet365. I love his upside. I love the driver being an asset here. The approach play has been a little bit hit or miss recently, but if the approach plays on, the putting has some upside as well, as we saw at the Houston Open. I think he could win, but probably want to bet him more for top 10, top 20, and I am invested in that market with Jaeger. And I also have a couple futures, not with a ton of value on Oberg. He's 25 to 1. I got him at 25 to 1. I think I've seen him as high as 22 to 1, but that might keep rising because of the knee concerns. And then I have a small ticket on Clark, only to win 4 units at 60 to 1, but on Wyndham Clark at 60 to 1. It's a Bombers golf course this week, and if his approach play shows up, I think so. I'm working on my power ranking, the top 50 golfers in this field. I have my top 3 tiers have 9 golfers. He's the worst golfer on approach among those 9 golfers, in my opinion. But he also, I think, has the highest upside with the putter and is the best putter among those guys. So I like that. And I think Jon Rahm also has a ton of sneaky putter upside as well. So those are my bets so far. I'm going to try to hold on for some in-tournament bets as well. I was really close with Koepka, but I thought that Oberg profiles somewhat similarly to Koepka in that they both bomb it off the tee. They're relatively pretty accurate for the guys who are bombers. Their approach play is really solid, especially on long irons, mid irons, and they have some putting upside, specifically within 5 to 10 feet. I think those guys are pretty solid there. I thought that Oberg was at 25 to 1 in the past, a better investment than a Koepka would be in the 10 to 15 to 1 range. And that's why I'm not on Koepka yet. I might invest in him in one and done this week, but that is to be determined. We'll jump into that in a little bit. Fellas, let's get through the rest of our cards this week at the PGA Championship. Spencer, you have any other matchups, placements, exotics, anything else?
I don't have a very robust card at this point. The only other wager that I have put a bet on right now would be Lucas Glover over Adam Hadwin. I will say I got that at minus 120. That number has moved more into the 130s now. I would argue that the value's probably gone in that total. It was very fringe if it was value at 120 to begin with. So a 10-point move definitely takes it out of consideration in a lot of these aspects. But I do think from a matchup betting perspective, this is a fun tournament. This is, we keep coming on this show and I keep talking about hopefully there will be in-tournament matchups for us to discuss in the article. And last week I had a couple. I got swept on the board on the few that I did take, but I didn't think it was a very good in-tournament betting board. These reduced fields always provide that. Major championships do the opposite. So I am very excited to see what we can get into when it comes to some of these in-tournament bets on when round 1 drops, but even for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. So that's where the majority of my exposure is going to land this weekend. I just want to mention on Batia and Jaeger very quickly. I talked about wanting to fade Tom Kim, and there's 3 players that Tom Kim would be against in matchups right now, at least at the legal books out there that we can talk about and that are out there. Like it's the 2 golfers that you mentioned, and it's Lowry. I think all 3 of those names make a ton of sense to take him on against, or take on against him, I should say. So I don't have a problem with any of those names. I went with the Lowry route just because I think Lowry probably has the safest floor of any of those options, but model has Batia and Jaeger also inside the top 35 versus this profile of Tom Kim that is just drowning outside of the top 100 for me. So I have no issues with any of those names if your book out there doesn't have that Lowry bet available.
I think that attacking it from the safety side makes a ton of sense, and I think we're in lockstep there. Spencer or Nick, what else do you have on your betting card this week?
Just 2 placement wagers. Both are absolutely gross. Do you want to talk about the breaking news real quick, or is that something we should skip for today?
Are you talking about Rory?
Yes.
Sure.
Does it matter to you guys? I mean, does it change the betting side of things? Funny enough, I was talking to my wife earlier today. I was like, for how much they talk about Rory, they never mention his wife. It turns out TMZ just broke the story 5 minutes ago while Spencer was going through his outright card that Rory is filing for divorce. So fresh off 2 wins, going back to a place where he won his last major. I feel like maybe that's just another narrative for people to talk about Rory. I don't think that changes my mind about him. I think I have the utmost confidence, and Spencer talked about it yesterday on a DFS show. Like, it's classic Rory. Start playing great golf, going into a major, get everybody excited. I am also excited, so I don't think I could fade him on the DFS side of things. I won't get there in the betting market, but yeah, wild story. I just want to know, do you think that changes anything in the betting market? Or obviously this was probably didn't happen overnight. It's been a long time coming. I'm sure it's been on his mind for months if they've been having issues or anything like that. I don't know. I'm not a marriage counselor, but I figured it would, add a little spark to the show, because I did not see that coming. And funny enough, literally this morning, my wife and I were just saying, yeah, they never talk about Erica at all. It's like they do a great job. Like, because Scotty too. It's like I don't even know if we know his son's name. Like they do a really good job leaving the people's personal life out of golf, unlike other sports, and just found that interesting. And then sure enough, this happens.
This is not a show for slandering of players, but here's the one thing I want to say about Rory. And I don't know if this makes it more likely or less likely that he wins this tournament based off of this answer, but I mean, this is a golfer who broke up with Caroline Wozniacki when they were together, the tennis player, through text message. I mean, they were
Rory.
engaged to be married, and he sends a text message to her, and that is how that got broken up. So I don't know how this marriage ended. I don't know if Rory's ever handled these situations correctly here. And maybe that means it's almost, maybe there means there's more upside here. I don't know. Maybe it's less. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it changes my perception of this any, but this is very classic Rory in every single segment of this answer. Rory wins golf tournaments coming into a major. Rory has bad situations in relationships with this. I hope that this one ended more amicable. God, I can't. We talk about words we can't say. I'll switch past that one, but I hope there was a mutual parting of that there.
Check the pop culture box for the show today, Roberto.
There will be some chatter about Rory and Scotty and their home lives if one of them does really well and the other one doesn't. I have no comment on the matter, however.
Yeah, the narrative.
That's the right route to take, Roberto. Take the political route and just play it right in the middle.
Yeah, Spencer and I don't care about burning our own careers. So back to the placement market, though. I found a price discrepancy, and this guy's like, Roberto, I want to hear your take on this. This has been a guy that significantly helped my success at the Scottish Open 2 years ago. Jordan Smith has been a guy that I've always thought was a very, very good player, just someone that, we couldn't get to make a putt, and doesn't really play much in America, but for me, graded out as one of the highest expected total drivers. That data is kind of skewed from what I'm pulling from the Euro Tour, but what I found very interesting is this guy used to be one of the top 20, maybe top 15 drivers of the golf ball in 2022, when I kind of realized this is a guy that should have been priced higher in the DFS Scottish Open, which was a big week for me. Average 309 off the tee in 2022. That has gone down 12 yards in 2 years, which is a massive change for professional golfers. 12 yards is, I don't know, Roberto, what do you think? Anywhere from 6 to 10 miles an hour ball speed, probably reflecting that. Guy doesn't miss fairways, though. So even when he was a bomber at 309 in 2022, was one of the best total drivers on the European Tour. But now going down to 297 off the tee, which is very strange to see because he's only 31 years old. I'm 32. Yeah, I'm 32, I think. I stopped counting after 30, but it's I still feel like I'm somewhat in my physical prime of being able to tack on mass and add more ball speed and still spray the ball all over the damn course like I do currently. But for a professional, to lose 12 yards when the game is going very heavy towards distance was kind of alarming to me. But what I like the most here is he's still been inside the top 3 in par 5 scoring and greens under regulation on the Euro Tour for the last 3 years. So whatever he is losing in distance, he's still apparently just a lights out long iron player. His par 5 scoring is through the roof. Right there, right behind Rory last year on the Euro Tour. So in terms of guys that have the game for this long course that may require a little bit of accuracy with it, Jordan Smith seems like a guy that I'm going to be very interested in this top 40 market. It seems like one of the players where these hold percentage in the top 40 markets that I used to live off of just, killed me. Like, they haven't affected these guys that aren't going to draw action. I can't imagine anybody besides Jordan Smith's friends and family taking action on him this week. So to get 300 or plus 300, 3-1, where Ty's paying full on Jordan Smith, I had that proper right around plus 250. And then I also took, I don't know why I have a feeling about Gary Woodland. I talked to Spencer a little about him yesterday, and Spencer seemed to think it's certainly an okay spot for him. We know Gary is captain of Team No Putt, and him and Glover. I guess Luke List is actually trending in the right direction with the putter, which is great to see. So I'm glad you talked about him. But Gary Woodland plus 320 to finish inside the top 40, one of the best expected golfers or drivers for me on this course with Jason Day and Jon Rahm. Obviously, Rory's going to be up there. Scotty's not too far behind, Brooks Koepka. So Gary Woodland was a name that stuck out with guys that he probably doesn't belong to be on paper with anymore. But with the harder scoring setup, I don't think putting is going to be necessarily important. Maybe 3-putt avoidance, which he grades fine for me on that. He's just not going to make a lot of birdies. If he could finish right around plus 2 into even range, I think that finishes inside the top 40, and I'll take over 3-1 on Gary Woodland. I had that price proper at plus 290, so right at that 30 points of value threshold that I'm looking for. But Jordan Smith certainly having the highest expected edge for me. But again, that is skewed data that I kind of put together from the Euro Tour, so I wouldn't trust my pricing on Jordan Smith as much. But the fact that it was 50 points of value there, that's still enough for me to kind of take the gray area there. But just really interested to hear you guys' thoughts on how the hell does a semi-young golfer lose 12 yards off the tee and be okay with it. But still finishing fine, nothing crazy. 5 straight finishes inside the top 40 at relatively watered down Euro Tour events. But I'm interested in this Jordan Smith guy again this week.
Yeah, 4 top 24 finishes in those last 5 starts, and no data over his last 6 starts. So we don't have any data on him since February at the Bahrain Championship. So he's kind of a black box. The only real explanation I could think of for losing that many yards is that he's injured and he's just playing through it. So that
I searched everywhere. I could not find one story. Golf media has, if someone can be a beat reporter for golf, I think that is a wide open job right now in this world, especially as golf is growing internationally.
That's something that is just a flaw in gambling on golf, is that I had Hideki Matsuyama in a lineup on DFS last week, and he withdraws after the window closes to set your lineups, and so that's a big fat 0 for the whole week. And we just don't know what these guys are going through. Taylor Pendrith noted a few weeks ago at the Byron Nelson that he's been battling a shoulder over the last over a full year, going back to Torrey Pines in 2013. So it's just tough when you don't know why a guy like Taylor Pendrith has lost his fastball off the tee, and maybe there's something else going on with Jordan Smith as well. That's my theory. I don't think he forgot how to hit the golf ball. So
yeah, T4 at the Dubai Invitational, which is a pretty good field. I think that's where Tommy won, right? Fleetwood and Rory finished second, and that's when Rory blew it on the 18th hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's he can play with these guys. But yeah, again, with the golf media thing, we mentioned it yesterday. I don't want to go on rampages of things that don't matter to the show, but when Bryson filed for new irons to get USGA, conforming approval right before the Masters, how did no one know anything about that too? It's just kind of frustrating that we don't get to know this stuff. So that's why, again, bet responsibly, especially in golf with how much variance there is outside of just actually playing the sport.
Yeah, that's one problem with. So for other sports, you've got a collective bargaining agreement where you've got the owners partnering with the players and they split the revenue. There is none of that in golf. So for the PGA Tour, the tour is run by the players, allegedly. And so the players have no reason to disclose why they're making a club change. Colin Morikawa won't give you anything when you ask him about his swing. He's like, yeah, I found something. Like, what do you want to talk about that? I was like, no, I don't want anybody else to steal it. I don't want anybody else to know about it. And so it's tough to get information out of these guys, especially when they think they have an edge. And they're not going to disclose when they're injured or anything like that unless they really need to. So that's frustrating, something I'd like to see change in golf, but I don't really see the structure for that to change.
Makes sense.
I'll hop into the rest of my card. I got quite a few actually here. I had several golfers whom I mentioned I wasn't sure could win. So I've got Taylor Moore, top 10, 16 to 1, and top 20 at 6 to 1. I'm a big believer in him with his off the tee game, bombs it. He's really solid on mid and long irons. I think this is more of an upside play than I think he's going to play well. So that's why I'm attacking top 10, top 20 instead of top 40. I think he's got a little bit more upside than people are pricing in. Same theory with Luke List at 20 to 1 for top 10 and top 20 at 8 to 1. These are all at Bet365, by the way, so Ty's not paid in full. I made the decision that the price was just a little bit juicier there, that I was willing to take the chop if I need to. I also bet Jaeger for top 40 and top 20 at plus 210 and plus 375. I think he is a little bit safer than those two other golfers, well, significantly, and the price reflects that. But I like how he fits his golf course, and I wanted to have a little bit on him in both upside markets with the outright and then also top 20, top 40. Additionally, I got a little weird this week putting out a small bet on a parlay. I don't think I've bet a parlay this whole year. So I'm going Rahm minus 330 for top Spaniard, parlayed with Neiman minus 175 for top South American. These are small markets where Rahm is only going against two other golfers, David Puig and Adrian Otegi. And I believe Otegi won on DP World Tour very recently. And then Neiman is only going against Emiliano Grillo, Alejandro Tosti, and Camilo Villegas. I don't think Tosti or Villegas will make the cut this week. And I think Grillo doesn't have nearly the upside that Neiman does. I'm really bullish on Neiman. I was very close to betting him at 40 to 1. That price got away from me in the outright market. It's now, I think, the best in the market that I found is 36 to 1 on Bet365. He's someone I'm very bullish on. I have him in my top 3 tiers. I think he's my 8th or 9th best golfer in the field this week. I really love his game. I think he's a great fit. And if you want to bet on somebody, if you have room on your card, I think he's a very intriguing option. So I like him. I think his floor is really high as well. He's playing great golf right now. So give me Neiman and Rahm minus 175, minus 330, parlayed at a price of plus 104. Maybe I'll add a little bit more to it if I find another leg that you guys like for an in-pod parlay play. Additionally, I have some first-round leader bets. I took a few stabs on similar guys. List 170 to 1. I like that the putter is an asset for him now, and his biggest weakness is around the green, which I think is mitigated here. So probably not going to win the tournament at 460 to 1. So I like the first round leader play a little bit better there. I got Taylor Moore. The putter can get hot there as well. 125. Batia 90 to 1. I got Denny McCarthy. I think a lot of that Valero Texas Open, especially that final round where I think he shot like 28 on the back nine. I walked that nine the day before. I didn't think there was 28 out there. I think there was 30 out there. He can get hot with the putter. I like, for the first round leader market, guys who can ignite for one round. And then Jaeger 80 to 1 as well. So 5 guys between 80 and 171 in my first round leader market. Tee times have not come out yet. So if you want to invest in the first round leader market, you'll probably hear this on Wednesday morning at the earliest. Be sure to take a peek at the weather and maybe adjust your opinions based on that, because there might be rain. So those are my plays on the rest of the card. Gentlemen, any thoughts on those? Or are we good to hop into our one and done?
Let's get the one and done over with.
Congrats to the champ right now, Roberto. Leapfrogs us. I've been waiting all day to say that.
So I was one of 2 people in our pool of 15 players, not a lot, to have Rory McIlroy last week. So nice $3.6 million into our winnings. I've taken a $1.1 million lead. Nick is hanging around just over $2 million behind. Spencer is in the rearview mirror, almost $6 million behind. So,
Hey, Roberto, by the way, I feel like I get, so on Wednesday, and I probably still sounded a little bit, but I got sick last week, and I forgot to make my pick and change it. So I had Cantlay there as a placeholder, and on the show, I was going to move it to Wyndham Clark, which then moved you from Wyndham Clark to Rory. So I feel like there's been some of this, at least 10% of the thanks should go to me for sabotaging this contest for myself and making sure everybody around me on this show finds success.
I appreciate your contribution.
Yeah, I think that's a very
I also
good,
wish
good
that
take.
the winner of the pool got more than 50% of the pool of the payout. But I think, Spencer, you're still in position to get paid, because I looked at the payout structure of our pool. The person with the most made cuts wins 5%, and you currently are the only person with 16 or more made cuts. You have 16.
Hey, congrats, buddy.
No upside. I am Mr. No Upside of this contest.
Webb Simpson of 2022.
So right now I have Koepka in. I think I'm going to change it to Rahm. I'm pretty
Nope.
sure I'm going to lock in
Come
Rahm
on.
this week.
I'm
So,
doing Rahm.
and I'm also most afraid of somebody picking a live golfer and leapfrogging me, because I know very few people have Sky Scheffler left. I want to guesstimate about half the people have Rory McIlroy left, maybe fewer. So I think the only way I can really get leapfrogged is if a live golfer wins. And so I'm going to put a halt on that by choosing one of Koepka or Rahm, maybe Neiman. But I think Rahm is the move this week. So we've talked about him at length. That's my play.
Yeah, I don't. The problem is I don't have a bunch of players available on the PGA Tour. Like I burnt through them a week or two too early before the victories, and then was left on the sidelines when they got their win. But it's going to be a week where players in these contests are going to play a lot of live golfers. I think that's just the natural thing. Like Rahm, Koepka, Neiman, those are probably the three that make the most sense. I do want to throw Dustin Johnson out there, though, if you're trying to get unique and different. I don't know if maybe for me, it makes the ultimate decision there that I should go that route because I need to be different. But like for a 15-person contest, I don't think you need to get that aggressive. If you're in a contest with hundreds of people, I do think Dustin is a very unique pick to make. And but if you were to give me one name, Rahm probably makes the most sense, and Koepka being the 1B to that.
Nick, are you locking in Rahm as well? Or all right, so we all like Jon Rahm in one and done this week. Fellas, any other plays that could be a candidate for in-pod play? Anything that's on your mind that you want to throw out there to consider before we jump into our rapid fire?
I had a lot of matchups that I was considering for one reason or another. And I don't know if these prices are still available. I should have price checked this before we went on the show. I wasn't planning to talk about them. But like one of the plays that was the most interesting to me, and there may be a little bit too much volatility, but there was a Luke List bet out there, minus 115 over Nick Dunlap. I don't know if I'm going to end up punching that ticket, but I did think there was value in that price of where it sat. List for me, and you kind of worded it best, Roberto. I don't know what the upside of him actually winning this is. Like at 460, whatever you said it was to 1, there are worse bets to make. Like if we always have the segment of who's the deepest golfer on the board that can actually win this tournament. It would probably be Luke List this week at that price. But we're also talking about a safety market right now, which gives me a little bit more cause for concern. But I thought there was value in that number. That would probably be the last thing if I do have a bet. It's going to be when the round 1 wagers come out. I'm curious to see where those numbers land with it. But for me, that's probably my card right now until some of these other additional matchups come out.
Dunlap's a really interesting golfer. He absolutely smashes the golf ball. He's a really good putter. The approach play's been up and down, and to this point on the PGA Tour, up until last week, really, I'd say that he's done well on easy golf courses and T24 last week. So a little bit of signs of life. He's super young, so he's still getting better and more experienced every single week. So I'd be a little bit cautious of taking him on this week just because of that result last week. Without that result last week, I feel a lot more confident. But I do think Luke List is a better golfer.
So that is the exact reason of why I did not end up punching the ticket. And it's not just last week's result. He was 30th at the Byron, which you can say, that is what it is. He was also 11th at the Houston Open. So he's had 3 top 40 sort of finishes in the last 5 tournaments. And the thing with that is that's fine, but we're also talking about a young golfer to where we don't know exactly where he's going to progress to. So I didn't want to get caught in the situation that Dunlap has now actually started to figure this out. So I ended up not getting to that wager, but there was value inside of my model. It's just, Dunlap is that unknown commodity that if he was 36 years old and had the profile that he did, I would be making the wager. With the age that he is, probably going to sit on the sidelines on it.
For the uninitiated, Nick Dunlap was a sophomore in college earlier this semester, played as an amateur on a sponsor's invite at the American Express, won the tournament at some like 300 or 500 to 1 odds. Nobody remembers. Well, nobody bet on him because nobody knew who he was at the time. And he now is on the PGA Tour, turned pro after that. Unfortunately, wasn't able to collect the winning money, but he's into this event because of that win. And I think he's got a ton of upside. It's just the approach play needs to figure it out. He's not very accurate off the tee either, but he hits it a mile. Just 20 years old, remember. So should be playing in the regionals this week instead of playing in the PGA Championship. But here he is because he won that tournament. I also was going to ask who you think the longest golfer is who can win this week. So glad we already got that out of the way with Luke List. Guys, there's someone we haven't discussed. Tiger Woods is in the field this week. He did not play last year at the PGA Championship because he was coming off of ankle fusion surgery. Any thoughts on him this week? Any markets that intrigue you or a way that you would want to fade or back him? Doesn't need to be out there right now, but just a way that you might be thinking about his game.
So this would be the exact opposite of an answer that I gave at Augusta. Augusta was the venue that I thought his just understanding and the nuances of that facility, he would find a way to get into the weekend. I'm not saying that I'm going to end up making the wager of Tiger Woods to miss the cut, but this is a much more challenging proposition for him than we got at Augusta. I worry about his outlook this week. We're deep enough into the show that if you've made it to this point in I'm just slandering every single player, I guess it looks like at this moment, but Tiger's outside of the top 105 of my model. That's incorporating every single recent major start that he's had and how it sets up for this venue. There were a lot of outs that he had at Augusta. And maybe this is a player who's won at this course before, albeit 24 years ago. This is a player that at his best is able to string together made cuts when nobody thinks he's able to in these spots. I just think this is a really challenging ask for him. It's a 7,600 yard course. This is not the setup that I would write for Tiger. Like, this is not the RBC Heritage where he could figure out a way to move from point A to point B here. I just worry about what is going to happen at this venue, and I don't know what the actual potential would be of wagers because the outright market, Phil Mickelson is a massive favorite against him at books. Like, that to me I would rather have Phil than Tiger if we're having the discussion there, but that's also a stay away spot for me, probably one way or another with it. So I have a hard time figuring out how I would want to back Tiger. It's more so how would I want to fade Tiger.
Currently on Bet365, you can get minus 188 on Tiger to miss the cut and plus 137 on Tiger to make the cut for reference. He's also 280 to 1 to win outright on Bet365. And I can tell you who's in that vicinity. He is priced at the same number as Billy Horschel, Jake Knapp, and Aaron Rai for reference. Nick, any thoughts on Tiger this week?
I'm going to be a hard pass. As much as I want to see him succeed, I think it's time to move on as golf fans. As much as that breaks my heart.
I'll certainly be watching every shot of his on Thursday and Friday. Hopefully he makes the weekend. I bet him to make the weekend at the Masters. That worked out, I think by like 5-6 shots actually. Got the better wave advantage, it looks like. And this week, I'm a little bit more worried about it because of the thick rough. The only place where he gained strokes at Augusta was around the green. And in addition to the short game, which is really tight, the approach play off the tee play hasn't been to his standard for a while. This is only his second PGA Championship since 2020. He just hasn't played a lot of these, and I think there's no coincidence that the issues with his health and everything have been tough. The rough could also accentuate some of that if the club gets stuck. We've seen some of that with Will Zalatoris and golfers of that ilk. So I'm worried about Tiger this week. I'm excited to see him play. Got the bucket hat. So come on, Tiger. We'll pull him for you, but I don't have a bet on him this week. I'm not going to fade him. And everybody in golf media, if Tiger Woods does well, we're all going to do well. So hopefully he does well, and maybe we'll find a matchup in tournament that we can bet on or against him. Of course, be sure to find our work here at Action throughout the weekend. I know Spencer, among others, will be giving out their picks for those in-tournament bets where you can maybe capitalize on an over exaggeration in the markets after one round. All right, guys, let's jump into our rapid fire. But first, a reminder that this podcast is presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, let's jump into rapid fire. I'll give you a couple names. You tell me who you'd like to have the outright ticket on most among these guys. We'll go Spencer, then Nick throughout. So, Spencer, would you rather have the Rory ticket at plus 825 or plus 460 to win outright?
Sorry, can you word that again?
Would you rather have Rory at plus 825 to win this week or Scheffler at plus 460?
I'll take Rory. I just think the Scheffler prices. I mean, they both are in. They're both a problem. I don't want the sub 10-1 numbers, but the 4-1 price makes this Scheffler the only ticket you can punch. And in reality, I'm over invested if I would go that route to begin with. So I'll take Rory just because it would give me the ability to at least add to the card, like a name or two.
Nick?
Rory. Yeah, give me Rory.
All right, moving on. I know you guys like Koepka, so we'll skip him and Rahm because we're all on Rahm. Schauffele is 16.5 to 1 here on Bet365. Ludwig Oberg is 21 to 1. Among those two golfers, who would you rather have a ticket on?
I'll take Xander. Just, I understand the problems with Xander's lack of perceived win equity in the space. I worry about Oberg's knee. I think that's a real problem that could potentially occur here. So, Xander's close, and close sometimes just means that you need a lucky break one way or another. And I don't know if a tournament that puts everybody in the same pack on Sunday is necessarily the event that Xander ends up beating 7 players when it's all close. But Xander, to me, has statistically been the second best golfer in the world this year. So I'll begrudgingly take Xander at the price.
Nick?
It's a loaded question for me. Of course I'm going Xander. It's gotta happen sometime. Like, what? There's nothing wrong with this game. Like, maybe lack of killer instinct, if that's a thing. But yeah, he checks every single box for me.
It's shocking how he hasn't won since the Scottish Open 2022. His wins are going to come in bunches. I continue to believe that. It's just he's got to break through, I think, more mentally than anything else. Next up on the odds board, big gap here until 29 to 1, where you find DeChambeau, Max Homa. Colin Morikawa is 32 to 1 as well. Nick, I know you've got Homa, so we'll exclude him for you. But Spencer, among those three guys, which one would you like the most?
The only negative sentiment that anybody ever wanted to talk about with Homa over the past couple of years was his lack of major championship pedigree that he had put together. Look at these last couple of results. He's starting to trend in that direction to where a major championship might be just around the corner. It's a nice setup for him. I like him at similar courses. He's a top 10 win equity player for me this week. I'll go with Max Homa.
Nick?
I love Max Homa.
Well, DeChambeau or Morikawa?
Bryson, by a mile. Yeah, if I had to choose. I'm not a Morikawa guy, and it burns me often, but I do think, again, as many do, this is a great course for Bryson.
The Morikawa approach numbers have not been great recently. I know he had that T3 at the Masters where he was really strong on approach, but 3 straight top 23 finishes since then. No data at the Zurich, of course, but the ninth at the Heritage, he lost strokes on approach, and at the Wells Fargo, he was barely positive. The putter's been carrying him, and I don't trust that. So I think for me, among the golfers 40-1 or shorter, he's the one I'd least want to have a ticket on outright, just because I don't think he has that upside, and the approach play that's his fastball. If a golfer doesn't have his fastball, I don't think they can win. Unless you're Scotty Scheffler and you got two other pitches that are elite stuff. Moving on, Patrick Cantlay is 41-1 here on Bet365. Joaquin Niemann is 36-1. Tommy Fleetwood's 41-1. Among those three golfers, Spencer, who would you most like the outright ticket on?
There was a time where I said anytime Cantlay was over 25-1, he was going to be an auto bet for me. I still think he's a decent value to consider. I really like Joaquin Niemann this week. Like, that's the name that missed my card that I was trying to figure out a way to get some exposure to this week. I think he's a legitimate top 10 win equity player in this tournament. And it's a very similar answer to an extent of what we're experiencing here with Jon Rahm. The Masters performance, and Niemann was fine, but he was also one of the most wagered on and played golfers in DFS, and he didn't necessarily break the bank for people and give that like ROI increase that you would want. He was very middling in a lot of those routes with it. Didn't even land inside the top 20 for a lot of those bets that were made. I think this is a perfect buyback spot for him.
Nick?
I'm echoing everything he's saying today. It was very painful to not get Niemann on my card. I think he's one of the most well-rounded golfers. Again, another great course fit. Someone that's kind of going under the live radar after all the hype at Augusta. Give me Joaquin Niemann.
If he falls to 40-1, I think I'm going to add him to my card, and that'll seal it until at least Sunday afternoon. But I'm also very bullish on Niemann. Hopefully, we get that slide. All right, last one, guys. Victor Hovland, we're all on him, so we'll skip him. Wyndham Clark is 46-1 to win outright. Cameron Smith's 55-1. Cameron Young is 55-1, and Justin Thomas is 60-1. You know what? I'll throw in Tyrrell Hatton. He's 70-1 as well. So among Clark, Smith, Young, Thomas, and Hatton, which one would you most like an outright ticket on, Spencer?
That's very close for me on a handful of those names. I'm out on Cameron Smith. I just want that to be said. I think this course is too long for him, and he's too inaccurate off the tee. He has like that double whammy of he doesn't hit either one of those two marks. I kind of think that Justin Thomas is sneaky to the extent that PGA championships, like we talk about Koepka dominating PGA championships, and he has over the last 6 years. Justin Thomas has also been the other name that just consistently seems to pop here. A lot of pressure with it being in Kentucky, but I like Hatton a lot. I think I'm going to go with Justin Thomas. It's very close with those two, though.
Nick?
I did not see him taking Justin Thomas because he slanders him every time I bring up his name. Who else had in JT?
Wyndham Clark 46-1. Smith 55.
Give me Wyndham Clark. Give me Wyndham Clark. Hard pass on Cam Smith, but
yeah,
I'll go Wyndham Clark. I thought Spencer was going to go Wyndham or Hatton, and let me take Justin Thomas for the hometown narrative. And the game is coming around, like I've been saying all year, but no one listens.
You've been correct. It is showing signs, and it's even, but
it's still extremely volatile. But that's where I'd want to bet him in the outright.
Yeah, it's the boom or bust commodity that he brings.
I think Hatton doesn't win enough, and if it wasn't for Schauffele and Cantlay, he'd be slandered as the golfer who is the best who doesn't win as much as he should.
Good point, yeah.
He, at 70-1, I think has decent value. He was one of the first golfers who missed my card, so I'm very intrigued by him, and I might try to find a way to back him at some point if I can find a matchup or something like that, because I think he's just relatively undervalued, and he also is very solid throughout the back.
Well, thanks for everybody for tuning in. Best of luck this week at Valhalla, and we'll see you next week at Colonial.